Hello and thanks for checking out this video. My name is Zach, and on this channel I mostly review science fiction and fantasy books, but I do delve into other interests like comics, manga, personal development, business, and yes, even regular fiction. And that is apparent today because I am talking about and sharing my thoughts and a brief review of John Steinbeck's East of Eden. And yes, so first question is always, you're a fantasy reader and science fiction reader. How did you get into East of Eden? Are you in 12th grade doing this for a book report? No, yes, this is a piece of American classic literature, but it is also maybe stereotypically on the Reddit book starter pack. So this is a novel that I have seen recommended on my chronically online Reddit self all the time on places like Books and Suggest a Book, and it's always been mentioned as one of the great reads, especially for the chronically online. And then when I had a colleague at a work conference recommend it as well, that they had just read it, I was like, okay, this is going to be my, clashing of two worlds, the online world and the IRL AFK world. Maybe I do need to finally check this out and see what the hype is, even though, yes, I'm way out of school for a classic literature book like East of Eden. So I finally got my hold in because, yes, this is a super long hold at the library, even for a classic, maybe because it's classic for a reason. Everyone wants to read it. But East of Eden is a very interesting book because it's sort of this multi-generational family tale of America in the Salinas Valley at the turn of the century, and it is the turn of the 1800s into the 1900s. So that's, as I was reading it, I was actually drawn into this a bit because of the setting. It's a world that, I don't really read about much. I don't read many historical books, let alone historical fiction. So to experience this world, this time, this place with the characters having the mannerisms that maybe stereotypically I would expect someone from that time to inhibit, this the way they talk, the way they treat people. It was an interesting, historical fiction to learn about another area. That said, it also, as you probably know, East of Eden is not like maybe a spoiler, but it mirrors the Cain and Abel story. And I knew that going in, that it's very, maybe almost heavy-handed on its allegory of the Cain and Abel. And that's what I was kind of, I guess you could say, looking for as I was reading this book. Even though I wasn't reading it as a book report, I knew that it has been dissected for these reasons. So I kind of went into it knowing that I'm getting this multi-generational story, this Cain and Abel allegory through the characters, but a multi-generational. I'm trying to be vague, but it's not really easy to be vague. But there's like two generations that happen in the book, and they both have the Cain and Abel in both generations. So it's an interesting setup, an interesting premise, and that's the prose. So the prose for me, not the prose with an S like the writing, but the writing was good. The prose, as in pros and cons, was yes, the prose, the writing is great, but the world building is something I really liked. As I said, I liked learning about the Salinas Valley. I thought it was really interesting to see that frontierness of the West, this like post-Civil War, and the characters talk about being in the, taking place in the wars, in these Indian wars, and it was, just really interesting to see it in the towns that they were in, the world, the frontierness. It just felt very alive, very, detached from where we are in 2025, where everything seems so connected, always online, chronically online. And here you have these people and families living just off the grid, I guess you could say, even though obviously to them it is normal, but just they're living in a totally different world for us. And I just liked reading about the characters. So the prose, as in the writing, was great. The characters themselves were obviously the strong point, because while the world was interesting, the characters that inhabit the world, you have the Trask family, the Hamilton family, they're kind of the backbones of the story. And just the way the characters, interact and are just created, they just felt so alive. And of course, yes, I'm going to talk about the Kathy/Kate character. She is the antagonist / villain and is woven through the story. I think everything I've ever read about this book, post reading it, it talks about Kathy Kate. She is really the embodiment, I guess, of evil, of the opposite of the other story, which is not other story, but the other concept of the book, this Tim Shell, thou mayest, do you have free choice to choose to be good? Kathy slash Kate is kind of the antithesis of she, I guess, chooses to be bad. I guess again, that's maybe the book report is, did Kathy choose or did the brothers choose? Who is choosing? So I don't want to go into all that, but yeah, of course, Kathy's character was very interesting. She was a very complex character, and like yes, she was kind of a foil to the pure-hearted brothers and how they developed. So it was an interesting kind of the way to see the kids and the parents and the evil and goodness through generations, being vague. But yes, that was definitely the positive. The cons for me and the negatives, what I didn't really like was, as a fantasy reader or a sci-fi reader, there's usually an overarching story. I mean, stereotypically, there's a quest for the hero to go on. They're saving a kingdom, they're escaping the earth because of some cataclysm in like a sci-fi novel, or there's some magic system, there's some power, like Lord of the Rings, they're trying to return the One Ring and destroy Sauron. But in this novel, East of Eden, there's not really a driving thread through the novels other than the families, I guess you could say. So it's a different structure from what I normally read, and maybe you say it's a pro, and also why I read it. It's a good break between reading so many fantasy novels that tend to blur together a bit sometimes in their plot structure. So it is nice as to be a well-rounded reader to read something outside of your normal genre. It definitely, I think makes you a better reader in general, just to see how other authors do this. And as this is an older novel, how maybe a foundational novel that your favorite author may have read in school and maybe just subconsciously drew on some of the writing that Steinbeck has done, if not in East of Eden, in maybe one of the other novels like Grapes of Wrath or of Mice and Men, things like that. So I think it's good. It makes you a well-rounded reader to at least have tried it and at least understand a bit of how it influenced maybe literature to come. And I guess the other negative was that Cain and Abel aspect, because it was very obvious. I'm again used to more modern writing and modern pacing, but it's very obvious that it was two brothers, and then they have kids, and there's like two kids, and they're both Cain and Abel twice through generations. So it was maybe a little heavy-handed on that this is a Cain and Abel story, and that's kind of the narrative that they're going for is not any way like, it's sort of mirrors some other story, but no, it's very kind of obvious what it is. And maybe to make a sandwich of what the pros, the thou mayest was an interesting concept, as I was kind of touching on. It's a way to frame things, and are you doomed by choice, or are you doomed to fate, or do you have choice to choose to be good? That's what the novel is about. That's what a book report or a critical essay would be about. Do the characters choose? Are they choosing? Can they choose? And then what I was maybe interested in was does Kathy / Kate, does she choose to be not good, or is she beholden to this trauma through the generations, or are the brothers, able to choose even though they have kind of generational trauma as well? So it was, again, maybe because, as you can see, it is an interesting, complex novel. And with that said, what I would kind of recommend if you like this, and maybe one to start off that I DNF, so I don't know if this is a good recommendation, but going into this, I was a bit worried that I would DNF because I DNF'd Pachinko, which as of right now, 2025, it recently got a lot of hype because there's a TV series about it. So the novel Pachinko was well received recently when it came out, but it's also this multi-generational family saga, I guess you could say, even though I didn't finish it, so I don't know how it turns out. But reading the early chapters, I didn't really get hooked into the story. It just felt very slow. But I think why East of Eden worked for me and that Pachinko didn't is because maybe as an American, I was more connected to the story being set in California versus set in Korea. So all the locations and kind of the politics that are happening in East of Eden felt more real to me. I understood it more. So maybe if I had a more, grounding in what was happening in Korea in the times of Pachinko, that may have, grounded that novel better for me, and I would have continued on. But East of Eden, I think, works if you're an American and grew up on American history and at least understand some of the backstory and the context that Steinbeck is using to establish the novel at this, late 1800s, early 1900s time period in the West. So that's, again, a pro or con. And when I was thinking of other novels that are maybe alongside this that are, yes, recommended on Reddit all the time as kind of the starter pack, but one that's recommended all the time is 11/22/63 by Stephen King, which is maybe it's sort of a spoiler, but it's also a TV series. It's a time travel mystery, but it's set in the past. So it's someone from the future goes back to the past and tries to kind of change the past. So if you like a historical fiction, maybe with a little more fantasy, 11/22/63, or a little more fantastical, I guess you could say, even though there's not like superpowers or anything, maybe try that. Or the other, Reddit book starter pack that, yes, it's on my list too, is Lonesome Dove. So this is a novel that, I would not normally think to read, but yes, I have a Libby hold waiting forever for Lonesome Dove because it just constantly comes up online as the best books to read, that it's the all-time great novels. Some of the novels like East of Eden, 11/22/63, and Lonesome Dove. So after reading this, and while it's not a all-time great for me, I can appreciate it as a well-written novel, as maybe an important novel. So I would give some of the other classic Reddit recommendations like Lonesome Dove a listen, and hopefully soon I will get my copy of Lonesome Dove and get through it and leave a review here. So hopefully this was maybe informative to check this book out if you never read it for school. Maybe it's time, like I did, to finally check out East of Eden or read something else by Steinbeck and see why he is considered one of the kind of great classic American writers, and to learn a bit about the turn of the century America, that late 1800s, 1900s time period. It's pretty interesting, and to see the characters and to see Tim Shell, to learn, thou mayest, do you have free will? Can you choose to be good? So thanks for watching this review and my thoughts on East of Eden by John Steinbeck. Have a great one.